think a lot of financial advisors who once thought, man, if I sell my business, I need to be out in 2 years and that's it. There's so many other creative ways now to monetize a part of your life's work, still be the captain of your ship and, be a partner of a larger organization. Can you just kind of like walk through specifically what that looks like and like what type of advisor would even be interested in doing that? Hey, everyone. Thank you so much for joining the podcast today. For years, financial advisors have been interested in the autonomy, the flexibility, the ownership of the independent channel. But for some advisors, they felt that running certain aspects of their own business would get in the way of servicing their clients, growing their business, or even bleed into their personal life. And over the years, an OSJ has solved for a lot of those problems. On top of a broker dealer's base offering, OSJs or large offices inside of independent broker dealers have a great solution for an advisor to leverage a firm's scale and have even more in tools and resources that more and more every day take an advisor's reasons for saying no to moving independent away and making it as easy as possible. Basically, it's giving an advisor the benefits of a larger broker dealer with the community and feel and customized service of a smaller firm without it greatly impacting your economics. And today we have one of the best OSJs in the industry on the podcast today, David Wood, the CEO of Gateway Financial Partners, to tell his story. David, thank you so much for coming on today. I really appreciate it.
Corey, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, if you don't mind, if you could just tell us a little bit about yourself and a high-level overview of your company, that would be super helpful.
I started in the financial services industry in 1986 and started Gateway Financial Partners in 1994. And I started in this industry as a personal producer, but then really morphed very, very quickly into running an organization to solve problems for, I think, independent financial advisors. So we want to keep advisors independent, but I think there's a big shift in our industry right now. And we're really starting to see this. We've seen 40% of the broker dealers in the last 13 years disappear, right? And those broker dealers are largely going to, some of the really scale players. But another big trend, I think it's harder and harder for advisors to remain independent, but get the scale that they really need to operate their practice effectively. And I think I can show you another industry that's gone through the same change. If you look at doctors and go back to 2002, and I think this is something as we look at it, it's really simple to understand. 75% of physicians in 2002 owned their own practice and 25% worked for a hospital or an aggregator. 9 years later, 2011, those numbers flip-flopped. And today, I don't think we can find a doctor that owns an independent, that owns his own practice, right? So we really believe that we can keep the advisor independent, keeping them with the ownership and economics of running their business, but provide them that scale that is really, really difficult to get on their own. The scale really comes to four areas. It comes down to client experience, it comes down to operations, technology, and leadership, right? So if we can add value in those four areas, we can really accelerate the growth of the advisor by giving them more time to focus on revenue producing activities and less of the stuff that they don't want to do. Very similar to doctors, right? The doctor loves to see the patient, but for advisors that work with doctors, we all know that they're often horrible business owners, right? They're horrible at running the operation, but they're great at providing that medical advice. And we really see a lot of financial advisors kind of fit the same mold, right? They love to give that financial advice to the client, but they need a lot more help and scale in all of the other aspects of running their business.
Awesome. So that's a good point that you bring up. I read an article a couple months ago, and it said if you take market growth out of the equation over the last 10 years, the average independent advisor is growing at about 2% per year. Yeah. And that's, obviously there's a lot of people on the independent channel that have a very mature business and maybe they're not trying to grow. But I think both me and you have had many conversations with financial advisors that really just don't know how to execute a growth strategy. So I guess I'm curious, you being a producing financial advisor, at least at one point in your career, why do you think that is? And what are you doing at Gateway to help with that?
I think a lot of times advisors, right? That's an awesome statistic. I hear 2, 3, 4%. It's virtually no growth. organically for financial advisors. So what's happening is this, I think there's a couple of dynamics that are really changing the industry. One is the aging demographic of financial advisors. A third of our industry is going to retire in the next 10 years. I think a lot of those advisors maybe don't want to grow or grow to the extent that they normally would, but they also haven't grown historically. So I think part of that, again, goes back to trying to do everything within their practice instead of focusing more on the clients. Our advisors are growing way, way faster than that, right? So this is the other thing. And when you start to look at market growth, well, the market goes up 20%, the advisor grew their business at 10 and they feel good, when in reality they're losing traction. So we measure advisor performance above a 60-40 portfolio, right? Clients aren't across the board for an advisor invested in the S&P 500. So we look at that growth and we look at it based upon a 60-40 portfolio to say, hey, what's the real growth that our advisors have had? And we can measure that, and we can measure the difference in growth of our advisors who are using part of our ecosystem to advisors that aren't, and the advisors are growing a lot faster. I don't think there's any magic to it, right? They're spending more time focused on revenue producing stuff, and they've given up the areas that cause friction and things that they're not good at. And the cool part about giving that up is they can often give it up at a much lower cost. So when you look at things like technology, by using the scale that we have, we support about 170 financial advisors in 26 or 27 states. So by using that scale, we can very efficiently take things like technology, marketing, really reduce the cost of what an advisor would pay on their own. And I think also then get a partner who is really committed to helping their growth. And that's another part of it. If you hire a marketing company, and there's a lot of good ones out there, what incentive do they have at the end of the day to have mutual success with their advisors? They really don't, right? They're getting paid a fee to do marketing. They get paid whether the advisor grows or not. Maybe the advisor doesn't keep them as a vendor, but we've got a vested interest to make sure that these advisors are successful. And we're trying to put all of those resources that we have to work. And that's largely a lot of marketing, a lot of technology, a lot of operations. Those are the areas I think the advisors have the most friction, but we also have the ability to take things away like human resource, dealing with employees. We have a staffing solution where we can take the advisor's employees, put them on our payroll to give the advisor back more time. They're not dealing with medical benefits, 401k plans. We can offer that stuff out. And again, we can do it more effectively. So, there's a pass through of that cost, but the advisor at the end of the day isn't spending any time on those resources. So I think when I look at this, we continually evolve and say, hey, based upon advisor feedback, what do advisors need more help scaling? And then we use the size and scale that we have to fix those underlying problems.
So this is kind of a two-step question. When I'm talking with financial advisors that are exploring independence in the very beginning of the conversation, sometimes they will look to go directly with a broker dealer and do everything themselves with the tools and resources that are solely provided by the broker dealer. And then I will mention someone like you that is an OSJ inside of the same broker dealer. And sometimes they'll just see it as like another layer of headache, I guess, is for a lack of better word, because they came from a place that has very, very a lot of friction in operations, a lot of friction in compliance. So like with technology and marketing that you were talking about before, could you kind of compare like how a broker dealer helps from that standpoint and how you level your support on top of that to kind of take it to the next level?
Yeah, so I mean, I think that there's a couple of parts to that question, right? So one of the parts is the perception of value. So when you start to look, I think there's been a big evolution of OSJs over the years. So I think when you start to look at that OSJ structure, we heard the term super OSJ. I don't like that term super OSJ. I look at us as a superior OSJ, not a super OSJ. I think those OSJs originally started to kind of beat the broker dealer up to leverage economics, right? So they got together to leverage the broker dealer for economics. We kind of look at that as a traditional OSJ. The second group of OSJs, we'd say it's a facilitator OSJ, where, hey, we're going to aggregate our production together and maybe do a conference or maybe do a couple of phone calls a year, but really do nothing else other than that. We're going to facilitate that relationship with the broker dealer. If you look at the third type of OSJ, which is really where the growth of that marketplace has come, it's in the business builder OSJ, firms that are offering a wide scope of services. So I think one of the challenges is the perception of what happens, right? It's just another layer of no support. And we're contacted on a regular basis with the comment, my OSJ doesn't do anything for me, right? So I think one of the struggles that we have is in communicating the story out to new advisors. And I think the best way that we do that is talk to the existing folks that we support, right? So this is where, when I look at advisors that have made 2 or 3 acquisitions in the last 5 or 10 years and have grown their business tenfold, we don't have that. We don't have them coming back and saying that. It's crystal clear what we're doing for those advisors. I think the challenge is in early on in that relationship, trying to decipher that. When I look at the broker dealers, we're affiliated with LPO. We've got a great relationship with them. I look at a lot of the broker dealers as providing kind of back office, right? So if I go back to that doctor analogy, the doctor is usually part of a physician's group that's part of some insurance company facilitator behind it. I think it's very similar to the broker dealer side. So there's a lot of good broker dealers out there, but they're not providing what I call front and middle office support. They're great at providing back office support with a lot of scale and doing it really, really effectively. But the support I'm talking about is front and middle office, down to computers and phones, right? A Microsoft Teams environment that's fully built out, a team of marketing people to help in every aspect of that advisor's business, whether it's in branding, social media, client gifts, client experience, right? So we're trying to take these areas where an advisor really doesn't have the scale. You look at $1 million advisor, when they go out and hire a marketing company or try to hire marketing people internally, they really can ruin their economics pretty quick and take a lot of risk on. That person doesn't work out. They've maybe paid a 6-figure salary to someone that didn't work out, and they had the expectation that their assistant can do everything. And we often don't see that as the case, right? We've got full-time people in areas like social media, full-time people in graphics design, full-time marketing managers and client experience people and digital people. We've taken all of our scale, hired all these people onto our team, because an advisor doesn't need someone full-time to do social media. They need somebody really good and a mechanism to get that, but they don't need it full-time. So they can leverage what we're doing kind of on a part-time basis, look at it like a co-op, to get a lot more scale in their underlying practice.
That's awesome. I know that was a huge question, and you nailed all of it. I asked you like 10 questions in there.
So. Well, then here's the, and then Corey, there's another thing too, is then the next part of that too, is that we've aligned our equity interests with a group of our advisors and all of our team members. So this is another kind of pivotal moment for our organization, right? So one, we're very, very fortunate. We've got an amazing team, and we want to make sure we retain that team. So we announced earlier this year that we've aligned our equity interest with all of our team members. So every one of our employees now has equity in the organization. We see that as a way to really retain amazing people by getting them all going in the same direction. And we did the same thing with a group of our advisors. So we really see that equity alignment as a way, again, to change the relationship with us for advisors that want to do that. We're no longer a vendor or an OSJ. We really look at them as a partner, and we all have an vested interest to see the organization be successful. I think very often when you look at the financial services space, does a financial advisor care if their broker dealer or their OSJ does well? No, they don't care. They don't care if they grow. What's in it for me? And that's understandable. I think our equity alignment program is a way to change that, to make sure that now we're truly aligned with those advisors that we serve every day. We're aligned now financially, so they have a vested interest to see us grow, and we have a vested interest to see them grow. I think that alignment really, really changes the focus in the future of how we can support independent people.
Do you want to walk through like some sort of specific example of that? Because this is happening a lot right now. And I think a lot of financial advisors who once thought, man, if I sell my business, I need to be out in 2 years and that's it. There's so many other creative ways now to monetize a part of your life's work, still be the captain of your ship, and be a partner of a larger organization. Can you just kind of like walk through specifically what that looks like and like what type of advisor would even be interested in doing that?
So I think there's really a couple types of advisors. So one, when we look at our relationship with the advisor, and there's similar transactions that are occurring out there. I think the number one thing is how do you get out, right? I think that it's one thing to get in, but how do you get out of those relationships? What was really important to us when we put this program together, we really did it in collaboration with our advisors, right? So the economics of what the value of an enterprise is worth in today's market and the value of a practice is there's a huge differential, right? We see your PE-backed firms going after these large organizations at very, very high multiples, and multiples that the individual advisor will never get. So we create a way for the advisor to participate and arbitrage that valuation differential while maintaining control of their practice. That was very important to us. So we're not trying to lock people in. If an advisor of ours who we become an equity partner with wants to walk away in 5 or 10 years and sell their practice, they can sell it internally to another advisor of ours, or they can sell it externally. So we're not trying to lock people in. I think that's one of the differences in the structure of our arrangement compared to other arrangements that are out there. So when I look at the types of advisors that we really want into that, we want growth advisors. We don't want advisors at the end of their career looking at this as a liquidity play. If an advisor wants that, we've helped about 20 advisors in the last 2 years make acquisitions. I think we have 3 deals we're going to close this month alone. And a number of those deals on the sell side, we're really trying to help facilitate a sale between the advisor and another advisor within our organization. We really view that as a better solution. And I personally think one of the best solutions out there for many advisors is a sell and stay. It's often not an outright sale, right? So everyone wants to buy the practice. I really think that much more appealing to financial advisors is a sell and stay scenario where they can sell part of their business today. Maybe they sell 75% of it today. They retain 25% and they partner with a younger advisor. They create a liquidity event for themselves. But the other thing that they get is they get someone who's younger, more energy, and often going to be viewed in the client's eyes as someone who can provide greater continuity in the practice. This is something I hear from older advisors, right? They're not growing. And one of the reasons that they're not growing is they're in their 60s. And clients, I think, are hesitant to hire an advisor in their 60s who might have 5 or 10 years left in the industry, right? So I think by partnering with a younger advisor in that sell and stay, it gives them the ability to provide that continuity to the client, which is often what the client is kind of really important to the client. And the client's not going to say, boy, my advisor's old, I'm not going to work with them. They're not going to say that to the advisor, but they're often thinking that in their head. So we actually look at those sell and stays as a very good scenario for advisors that maybe aren't ready to walk away. The other key component of the sell and stay is an advisor maintains ordinary income. So if an advisor sells their entire practice, they've taken their asset and they've converted it into long-term capital gains. And that transaction's done. They got no more write-offs. They don't own anything anymore.
Yeah.
By doing a sell and stay, they continue to have self-employment income and can continue to put those business expenses through the business, right? At a reduced revenue and a reduced tax situation, and then ultimately sell the balance at some time in the future. So I think it really gives them the ability to have their cake and eat it too, and create a better continuity for their clients.
Awesome. So let's go back to marketing for a second, because that's where financial advisors that I've worked with and helped move to independence have just really, really seen some growth and some additional flexibility from where they were before. So an advisor coming from in the employee world, you're on LinkedIn as well, David. I mean, you see, 20 people at XYZ company and they have the same happy 4th of July post with like fireworks, and it's like exactly the same and gets, literally no traction. Talk about the scale that you've provided on the marketing side to, really help add some additional growth into an advisor's practice.
Yeah. So number one, I don't like the word marketing just in general, because again, I think it goes back to OSJ, right? You talk about OSJ, there's a lot of things that that can mean to different people, right? So what does marketing mean? I hear advisors say, well, I don't do any marketing. Well, they're certainly doing marketing. They just don't look at it in the conventional sense. So when we look at marketing, our definition is to create a client experience with scale. And that experience really starts with the existing clients that an advisor has, right? So I think a lot of times advisors, when you mention the word marketing, they think about doing seminars and these things to get new clients, and that might be part of it. But the other part of marketing is making sure their clients have an amazing client experience. And that's something that our team spends a ton of time on. And just to go just how deep our value proposition is in that area, we have a full-blown e-commerce store where advisors can buy client gifts and take out all the friction of trying to do stuff like that for their clients. We have a manufacturing facility we built to take away things like that. So it's really about trying to create a client experience with scale, but that experience has to be unique to the individual client. And if it's not, then that's not going to create a good experience, right? You could send me a $500 bottle of white wine. I'd pop it in the refrigerator. And then when somebody came over, I'd open it up and I'd serve it to them. I'm not a big white wine fan, but you send me a $20 bottle of bourbon from Charlotte that I've never seen before, I'll be the happiest guy in the world. So I think part of that is getting the consumer right, understanding that consumer's preferences, and then using technology and resources to create a unique, what really in some cases isn't unique, but what the client thinks is this unique experience. So when you look at things like social media, none of our posts would be like that. So when we do posts, we're doing all of that custom for the advisors. We're not doing it boilerplate, because the other part about the customization is each advisor maybe is in a different market. So if I work with retirees, putting college planning stuff doesn't resonate to my clients if my market is retirees. So it's about Social Security or retirement income or managing risk. So I think it's really I think a high level of customization that we're able to do because of the size of the people that we have, and the, I think, relatively small number, 170, right? It's a relatively small number of advisors. I think the firms that are trying to market those things globally is they've got to find one solution that works for everybody, right? So the firms you mentioned, they can do one 4th of July post and push it out to 5,000, 10,000 advisors. That's pretty easy. The stuff that we do is pretty hard, but it's been impactful because we're getting it right. We're not, canned. And, I've got the same thing. I'll follow multiple people on social who work for a given company and all the posts are the same. There's nothing unique. And that's not going to make the advisor stand out. So we really want to help that advisor stand out. So a lot of the marketing we're doing is very specific to the individual advisor. We really believe that the brand is the advisor, right? The advisor is the brand. We're trying to give the advisor a lot of scale on the back end to make sure that that brand and what they're doing is successful. I think that's how we approach the marketing.
Awesome. David, this is kind of like a different topic, but you had a unique journey from a smaller broker dealer of 1,000 financial advisors, I'm guessing, at NPC. Is that an accurate guess?
About 30, yeah, there was about 3,500 in the network and about 1,500 at the broker dealer.
Okay, 1,500, and then versus a big firm like LPL that had probably 17,000 at the time when you made the transition. What are the pros of both? We have financial advisors on this podcast that are considering really small firms, or considering big firms, everything in between. You as someone that experienced both hand, what are the benefits?
Well, you're right, Corey. I think there's benefits both ways, right? So when you look at a smaller firm, what do you get from the smaller firm on the positive and the negative? So what you get on the positive is you clearly have a more intimate relationship with the folks that work there, right? And that's just a size issue. There weren't 7,000 employees at our former broker dealer. So you got to know these people. There's much more of a relationship that goes along with them. And I think it's easier to navigate. Now, the flip side to that is the broker dealer lacked the scale to have an ongoing business model. I mean, the broker dealer was very well capitalized, 3,500 financial advisors, but made the decision to exit the space. I would highly caution financial advisors looking to go to a small broker dealer. And it goes back to what I said in the beginning. 40% of the broker dealers in the last 13 years have disappeared. Do we think that trend's going to continue, or is it over? I think it's going to continue in a big way. So I think one of the challenges with going to a small broker dealer, you're going to pick up that intimacy, but what are you going to give up? You're going to give up long-term stability of your back office. I think that that's a lot of risk, right? So when I look at it, I think firms like ours and the other scaled up large enterprises that are providing that front middle office support, they're solving for that, right? They're solving. We're getting the scale on the back end of the industry's leading broker dealer and I think custodian. We're getting that back end strength coupled with the look and feel of a very small broker dealer. And you start to look at small. I mean, if we were to rank our revenues and go look at the top 50 broker dealers in the industry, our size and scale puts us on that list, right? Along with a lot of other big firms, it puts us on the list of we're doing more revenues than some of these broker dealers. I think it's really hard for those firms to stay in business. I'll give you one really good example of that. Financial Planning Magazine does their top 50 survey, top 50 biggest broker dealers in the industry. If you draw a line about a third of the way down the page, the bottom of the page, this is the bottom of the top 50 broker dealers in the industry, are doing less in revenues than LPL will spend on technology alone this year. So like, how do these firms compete and survive? I just don't think that they do, right? I think it's the same thing with the solo advisor. I think it's becoming harder and harder for the solo advisor. They can survive, but are they going to really thrive? Because I think the competition is becoming much better. The competition isn't the financial advisor around the corner. The competition is now your scaled up aggregators that are buying up practices at a pretty large rate and now marketing to the consumer in a way that's never happened before. So I don't think it's good for the industry, but I would really caution advisors that are looking to go to a smaller firm because I think that's going to solve something. I think it does solve part of that relationship part, but I also think it creates instability long term when you look at where does that firm ultimately go. And I'll tell you, Corey, we in 1994, I'm sorry, in 2003, joined National Planning, and we looked at probably 25 broker dealers over a 2-year period of time before joining NPC. And by the time NPC was acquired by LPL in 2018, I think all but maybe 2 of those firms were gone.
Yeah.
Right. So I think we made a good choice in going to MPC. They held out the longest, but I think there was a lot of instability. So I think that's kind of what I see from my perspective is we know the organization that we have on the back end. LPL is not going anywhere. We've got a very, very financially solid company that's putting a lot of money back into resources to support the advisors. And we can kind of couple that with the front and middle office stuff that we provide that really, I think, creates the best of both worlds for a financial advisor.
That's awesome. I mean, sometimes I do think there's a really, really, good reason why a financial advisor would go to a smaller firm. Maybe it's, more flexible compliance policies for something like very specifically that they do. But if it's just, an advisor that's looking for more community, they can easily get it inside of a large university, get all the benefits of that, and then, plug into a smaller sorority or fraternity to get the sense of community and extra support for sure. So I totally agree with what you're saying.
Right. And I think take away the risk, right? The risk is that the university closes down or sells to another university. That's a big risk, right? That's a big risk. If I'm at that big university and I want to change my sorority or fraternity, maybe I can change and find a different group of people to hang out and associate with, or find a different spot to get resources. But I think ultimately have that stability on the back end, which I think is really, really critically important. That's going to be the big disruption for a financial advisor. It's going to be a change to the back office. It's not going to be a change to the front and middle office. It's going to be a widespread change to the back office. That's what's creating the big change. And we're seeing it now with some of the aggregated broker dealers that are now rolling everybody up under one brand, right? So there's a lot of work that's going to happen, and that's not even going to be a seamless transition for the clients and for the advisors.
So for an advisor that's considering going into a potential, OSJ like yours, obviously there's a lot of competition out there. What would you say the top questions are that they should be asking, themselves, and places like you to vet if it's a right fit or not?
I think one of the biggest things is that cultural alignment, and I think the best way to find that is not to talk to the firm, is to talk to some of the existing advisors that are with the firm. So I often suggest that prospective advisors talk to someone who is relatively new, maybe 6 months into the relationship. And I think 6 months is a great period of time because it's generally when there's the most friction that occurs, right? That we just got finished with the transition. Talk to them after the transition's finished, and then talk with someone who's been at the firm for 5 or 10 years. I mean, our senior advisor celebrated his birthday last week. He's 83. He's been here for nearly 30 years. So I think part of that is talk to the people more than talking to the firm, because I think you're going to get a much better understanding of whether this is a fit. I think seek the guidance of the firm, because again, if you start to randomly call up advisors at a firm, you may not find an advisor who is aligned with what you're looking to do in your career, right? If I'm a retiring advisor, I really don't want to talk to somebody who is younger and aggressively growing. On the
Yep.
flip side, if I'm a younger advisor who's aggressively growing, I probably don't want to talk to an advisor that is, 65. So I think take some guidance from the firm to find the good fit of people to talk to, and then talk to the advisors, ask them the questions. But I think a lot of that comes back down to culture and resources. I think one of the big things is, has the firm done what they said they're going to do? Right? Has the firm done what they said they're going to do? Another question to ask the firm is, have you done any type of analysis of net promoter score or rep satisfaction? We do this every single year, and we'll share our net promoter scores with our advisors because they're really, really high. And we've worked really, really hard to make advisors happy so that when they're surveyed, that net promoter score is a real number. But we're incredibly proud of our high net promoter scores. We've been surveying our advisors for nearly 20 years. First week of every year, we send them out a survey. The survey is consistent. So we have benchmarks to know how we're doing as a company, to understand that satisfaction. And again, Corey, if we were doing the same stuff we were doing 15 years ago or 10 years ago or 5 years ago, I think we'd be out of business today, right? So I think it's not so much what is the firm doing today, it's what's the firm's plans for the future and how are they adapting to the changes that are going on, right? So it's like, what made Wayne Gretzky such a great hockey player? Well, he didn't skate to where the puck was, he skated to where it was going to be. I think it's the same thing in this space. Really ask a lot of questions about where's the future of the firm and what does that look like, right? Is the plan just to sell it in 2 or 3 years? That might not be a firm that I want to affiliate with. What are the long-term plans, and how are they using advisor feedback to further enhance their value proposition? That's very important to us. We really want that feedback from advisors because we're here solving problems as their partner. And as they say, boy, this has changed, I need help in this area, we want to make sure we're delivering that. I think COVID was a great example. We were the first firm at LPL to have a full-blown Microsoft Teams environment. We did that 2 years before COVID, right? So this was forward thinking. I didn't say, boy, a pandemic is going to happen. We didn't know what COVID was. But I said, boy, there's got to be a better way to integrate and provide a communication tool across our entire organization for advisors that are throughout the country. So we invested a tremendous amount of money into our Microsoft Teams environment. And then when COVID happened, our advisors were used to operating in that environment. So it was very seamless for them. And it was very easy for them to go remote or operate in a different way with their clients, and then also operate in a different way with our team.
Awesome. David, I love the energy. I've got nothing but great feedback from any advisor that's a part of your organization. And thank you so much for the time. I really,
Awesome,
really
man.
appreciate it.
Great seeing you. Have a great
Okay, have
day.
a great day.
Thanks, Corey.